This is 2CC Breakfast with Stephen Cenatiempo.
Discover 24/7 care at Aspire Aged Care by LDK.
1206.
2CC.
19 past 8 here on the program, 6255 1206, the telephone number. A former coalition minister has slammed the federal government's handling of aged care and called for major structural change in a submission that exposes years of failure to help older Australians. And we're seeing that in Victoria at the moment, aren't we? Liberal Senator Fierravanti-Wells says the federal government has not had the political fortitude to fix the sector after spurning calls for action when it took power. She's made a submission to the Royal Commission into aged care, quality and safety, in which she says the government squandered a chance for reform. And the Senator joins us now. Senator Fierravanti-Wells, good morning.
Good morning, Stephen.
You were the coalition spokesperson for aged care for 4 years, and you put the policy together that the current government took to the 2013 election. What went wrong?
Well, really, Stephen, it was an issue more about not having promised reform and then we didn't deliver. But I guess it fell into the pattern of non-delivery from reviews. I mean, let's not forget the Interim Royal Commission has highlighted the continuation and so many reviews and more reviews on top of those inquiries. And its conclusions make it very difficult not to be critical of successive governments' failures to fix aged care system, and this is where it's really hit the point there. And the other point that the Royal Commission interim report is saying is that you can't escape the conclusion that aged care services and the people who receive them have simply not been seen as a priority by successive governments. So, Stephen, in 2011, the Productivity Commission did a major report called Caring for Older Australians, a major report, and that was very much the background against which I did the work that I did right across Australia. I travelled extensively. I spoke to many people. But, of course, I had my own personal experiences because at age 23 I was a founding board director of a nursing home in Wollongong. And that, of course, combined with all the work that I've done over many years and then subsequently my own personal experiences with both my parents and most especially in the culturally diverse space and aged care issues has given me a unique perspective, if I can put it that way. And so I thought it appropriate time for me to put forward those views and be honest and forthright about where the problems lay.
Given all of that experience, why did they take the portfolio off you?
Well, Stephen, as you know, you've been involved in politics in the past, and it's the prerogative of a Prime Minister to allocate portfolios as they see fit. But it wasn't just the allocation of the portfolio. What also complicated the situation was that aged care was then moved from health and ageing, which is where it should be, over to the Department of Social Services. And, of course, that meant thousands of public servants were moved, valuable resources were sucked up in terms of all of the things that happen when you move a whole department. And I believe that was money better spent on the front line. And now eventually in 2015, ageing went back to health where it should be. But of course then combined with that, you've had this revolving door of aged care ministers both under Labor and then, of course, continued under us. So all of this creates a lack of stability. It doesn't create the environment within which you need to do reform. And we should have done major reform in the aged care sector, especially after the Productivity Commission report highlighted so many of the problems and repeated many of the problems that had existed in the past. And, of course, now you've got the Interim Royal Commission, which is being guided also by the Productivity Commission report. The good thing about that Productivity Commission report was that it just didn't look at the systemic issues in aged care, but it actually went to the core of broadening the funding base and making sure and looking at that appropriate balance between public funding and private funding, which we know is a very sensitive issue. It's a very complex issue, but you've got to find that appropriate mix because in the end, the reality is that Australians will have to pay more for the care of older Australians because our population is ageing.
Yeah.
But, of course, we've also got a baby boomer generation that is now coming in to that area of potential care. So the system now needs to be such to meet the demands of the baby boomer generation, but also a generation that is more financially able to contribute. But, of course, the key thing in all of this, Stephen, is let's not forget the number of people of working age for every person aged 65 and over. And today it's about 4.2, but in 2050 it'll be down to 3.1. And that means the people of working age, people of working age for every person over age 65, and of course contributing to the cost of aged care.
Well, Connie, which leads me to my next question is, or a couple of things that sort of fall into one. Given that we had this Productivity Commission report, why did we need a Royal Commission when we knew what the problems were, first of all? But secondly, the Prime Minister has copped a bit of flack, I think unfairly, from the Victorian Premier over the situation in Victoria at the moment. But he quite smugly says, well, that's why I brought in the Royal Commission. Is this just another buck-passing exercise?
Well, the problem is the Royal Commission is on top of other reviews. I mean, there have been, and the interim report of the Royal Commission comes following countless reviews and inquiries by different governments. I mean, the problems are clear, the challenges are the same, but if we continue to only tinker with a flawed system, then the consequences will be the same. So that's why the Royal Commission has now said that we will be recommending comprehensive reform and a major transformation of the aged care system in Australia. We have to chart a new direction, and we have to design a system that really does two key things. One is that it really does give older Australians the care that they need when they need it and where they need it. But it also has to be that mix of services, bearing in mind most Australians want to stay at home, but a system designed to meet that waxing and waning, to use the parlance of what the Royal Commission is saying. So the ups and downs. Sometimes you need more services, sometimes you need less services. But that flexibility is not in the system, Stephen, and that's really what I did back in 2013 before that election, to look at the Productivity Commission, to road test what it actually would mean if you rolled it out. And this is what I am now presenting as those ideas to say, well, this is an important discourse at this particular point in time, and this is what I think is a good blueprint to ensure that we put those important relationships about care above very much what is a regulatory transactional system.
Connie, Joel Fitzgibbon joins us every Wednesday on the program, and he's come under fire recently for having a crack at people within his own party. What's been the feedback from your side over this?
Well, Stephen, I think you know me well enough to know that I've not been afraid to be the tip of the spear, particularly in calling out Beijing for its skullduggery and its activities in the past. And this is a very important issue, and I'm not afraid to be the tip of the spear here, because this is important not only to many of my constituents here in New South Wales, but it's important for all Australians, and the dignity that we show our parents and our grandparents. And as I said, very much what I'm doing is guided by my own personal experience. I mean, my father passed away after a long battle with dementia. My mother passed away earlier this year in the very aged care facility that I helped found almost 40 years ago. So I know that this is important. I also know that this is very important for many of our special needs communities, our culturally diverse communities, our Indigenous communities, our homeless. So when we start talking about aged care, you have to design a system that's going to meet the needs, that deals with the systemic problems that the Aged Care Royal Commission once again is highlighting, but making sure that you've got a system that meets those day-to-day needs. As I said, people want to stay at home, so you've got to deal with a system that has the flexibility to be able to deliver those needs when people need it, where they need it, and whenever they need it.
Connie Fierravanti-Wells, thanks for your time this morning.
Thanks very much, Stephen.
28